Evan didn't think of himself as lazy. Not really. He just needed a few more minutes before doing anything important. A few more minutes before getting out of bed. A few more minutes before answering emails. A few more minutes before working on the big project he'd been dreaming about for years. Those minutes always slipped quietly into hours, and those hours kept disappearing into days he couldn't account for. One Monday morning, he woke up to the same dull glow of his phone notifications, messages, reminders. He scrolled through them with the empty routine of someone watching life happen from behind a window. He knew he was behind on deadlines. He knew he hadn't moved closer to any of his goals. But nothing changed. It was easier to scroll, easier to watch videos, easier to promise himself tomorrow. But the truth is, tomorrow is the easiest lie to believe. That week, something strange happened. Evan's old friend Mason invited him for coffee. Mason used to be exactly like him, and focused, drifting, always talking about plans but never doing anything. Yet when Evan stepped into the small cafe, he almost didn't recognize him. Mason looked sharper, calmer, more alive. "Man, you look different," Evan said. "I stopped wasting my time," Mason replied, half smiling. "Turns out, it changes everything." Those words echoed in Evan's head long after the conversation ended. He went home that evening and sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the ceiling. He didn't feel inspired. He felt guilty for all the time he had thrown away, all the opportunities he had quietly buried under excuses. He thought about all the tiny dreams he once had. Write a book, learn guitar, start a side business, get in shape, travel more, rebuild the confidence he had in his early 20s. None of them were impossible. None of them needed a miracle. What they needed was action, consistent, boring, uncomfortable action. And yet he had done nothing. The next morning, he stumbled across an old journal while cleaning. Inside, there was a sentence written on a random page. "One day, you will wish you started today." He couldn't remember writing it, but it hit him harder than anything he had read online. He felt a slow burn in his chest, the kind that isn't pain, but regret blending with realization. The kind that whispers, "You could have been more than this. Why did you wait?" He closed the journal and looked around his room. Every corner seemed to reflect a version of himself he didn't want to be anymore. The messy desk, the unfinished projects, the list of goals taped on the wall untouched for years. He whispered to himself, "I'm wasting my life." For the first time, the words didn't sound dramatic. They sounded true. That evening, Evan decided to take a walk. The sun was setting soft, orange, tired. He watched an elderly couple walking hand in hand, slowly, gently, savoring each step. He watched a group of kids racing down the sidewalk, laughing as if joy came naturally. He watched a delivery driver sprint out of his van like he was late for the most important appointment of his life. Everyone seemed to be moving, except him. He realized something simple but profound. Time was passing, whether he used it or not. The world wasn't waiting for him. His dreams weren't waiting. His future wasn't waiting. And if he didn't change, nothing would. That night, he sat down at his desk. No grand plan. No perfect strategy. Just a decision. He wrote 3 things he would do the next morning. 3 things he had been avoiding for months. Something small changed inside him when he put pen to paper. Not motivation, but intention. Motivation fades easily. Intention doesn't. The next morning, it was hard. His body wanted to stay in bed. His mind begged for distractions. But he forced himself through the first task, then the second, then the third. When he finished, he didn't feel like a hero, but he felt something he hadn't felt in years: control. The following days were chaotic, imperfect, messy. He failed more than once. He overslept. He skipped tasks. He had days where he slipped back into old habits. But he didn't quit this time, because every time he wasted time, he felt the cost. He felt hours slipping through his fingers like sand he couldn't gather back. Weeks passed. Slowly, almost invisibly, he became someone different. Not suddenly disciplined, just more awake. Not suddenly successful, just more intentional. Not suddenly confident, just more aligned with himself. Little by little, he reclaimed his life. One day, while sorting through his camera roll, Evan found a short video of himself from 2 years earlier. In it, he talked about goals he never pursued, dreams he never chased, things he wanted to accomplish soon. He watched in silence, feeling the weight of the wasted time behind him, but also the strength of every new day ahead. He didn't feel ashamed anymore. He felt responsible, because he finally understood the truth. You don't lose life all at once. You lose it 1 wasted minute at a time, and you rebuild it the same way, 1 intentional minute at a time. From that moment on, whenever he felt himself slipping back into old patterns, he imagined a timer above his head. Not a countdown to death, not that dramatic. Just a reminder that time was the most valuable thing he owned. Everything else could be replaced. Not this. He began to see time differently. Every hour became a choice. Every choice became a direction. Every direction became a future. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't drifting. He wasn't waiting. He wasn't wasting. He was building. He was living. And he finally whispered something new to himself. I may have wasted a lot of time, but I'm not wasting the time I have left. But Evan's transformation did not happen in a straight line. Growth never does. Some mornings he woke up filled with energy, ready to change his life. Other days he stared at his ceiling, feeling like nothing mattered. But every time that heavy feeling showed up, he remembered something his grandfather once told him. The world does not reward potential, it rewards effort. Those words guided him through the weeks that followed. He did not aim to be perfect, he aimed to show up. One Sunday afternoon, Evan visited the park to clear his mind. Families were picnicking. Children were chasing each other with wild laughter. Joggers passed by with sweat dripping down their temples, but determination glowing in their eyes. Evan sat on a bench and watched life happening all around him. He realized something powerful. People who move create momentum. People who stay still create regret. He thought about the years he had wasted waiting for motivation, waiting for the right moment, waiting to feel ready. But readiness is a myth. Life never pauses to give anyone a perfect starting point. He stood up and walked faster, letting the breeze cool his face. He was not running from anything anymore. He was moving toward something. That night, he made a new rule for himself. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Wash the cup, answer the message, write the idea down, start the task. Tiny actions became tiny victories. Tiny victories became daily confidence. He started finishing books he once abandoned. He started exercising, even if it was only 10 minutes a day. He started learning new skills, not to impress anyone, but because he loved the feeling of becoming better. He found joy in consistency. Meanwhile, people around him began to notice. His colleague Mia asked him one day, "What changed?" "You look focused." He smiled. "I stopped letting the day control me. I started controlling what I could." She nodded, slowly understanding. Because deep down, everyone knows they are wasting time, they simply avoid admitting it. Months passed. Evan did not transform into a completely different person overnight, but he became a better version of himself, piece by piece. He no longer checked his phone first thing in the morning. He no longer filled silence with procrastination. He no longer avoided commitments simply because they were uncomfortable. He started living deliberately, but the real turning point came unexpectedly on a quiet evening while cleaning out his email inbox. He found a message he had ignored for months, an invitation to pitch his passion project to a startup incubator. An opportunity he once believed he was not ready for. The deadline had passed weeks ago. He stared at the email for a long time, not with anger, not with sadness, just with clarity. He whispered, "This is the cost of wasted time." Instead of breaking him, that moment sharpened him. He printed the email, taped it to his wall, and wrote in bold letters underneath, "Never again." From that day on, Evan made decisions like someone who truly understood the value of time. He created a routine. He set boundaries. He cut out people who drained him. He stopped pretending he had unlimited hours to waste. He worked on his passion project every day, even when tired, even when uninspired, even when progress felt painfully slow, because he finally understood the secret. Success does not come from inspiration. It comes from habit, and habit is built in the minutes that everyone else throws away. 6 months later, he applied to a different incubator. This time early. This time prepared, and this time he was accepted. The night he received the confirmation email, he did not celebrate wildly. He simply sat by his window, looking at the city lights, glowing like scattered stars. He felt calm, not proud of the achievement, but proud of the person he had become in order to earn it. He had redeemed his time. He thought back to the version of himself who used to waste days doing nothing meaningful. The version who kept delaying life because he believed he had plenty of time left. That old self was not stupid or weak, just unaware. He whispered to the empty room, almost as if speaking to his past self. You were not lazy. You were asleep. But you are awake now. Stay awake. The next morning, he woke early not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The sunrise greeted him like a quiet promise. He made coffee, opened his laptop, and got to work. Not with fear, not with dread, with purpose. He remembered how easily years can slip through a person's fingers when they are not paying attention. He remembered how quickly life can pass. And he promised himself something unbreakable. I will not waste the time I am blessed with. He did not become the most disciplined man in the world. He did not become perfect. He did not eliminate every distraction, but he became intentional, and that was enough. He built his future one focused hour at a time. He built his confidence one completed task at a time. He built his life one decision at a time, and someday, when someone asked him what the turning point of his life was, he did not tell them about the acceptance email. He did not tell them about the success that came later. He said only this: the day I realized I was wasting time was the day I stopped wasting my life. Weeks turned into months, and Evan continued to build a life that felt purposeful instead of reactive. He discovered that progress is quiet. It does not announce itself with sudden fireworks or dramatic breakthroughs. It comes as small shifts, barely noticeable at first, yet life-changing over time. He started waking up before his alarm. His mind felt clearer. His work began to flow more naturally, as if his brain finally trusted him to show up for himself. He noticed that he no longer dreaded Mondays. He no longer resented his tasks. He no longer escaped into distractions simply to avoid discomfort. Discomfort became a signal, not an enemy. One evening, he met his old friend Jason for dinner. Jason had always been confident and ambitious, but he had fallen into the same trap Evan once lived in: endless scrolling, constant overthinking, hours lost to mindless entertainment, ideas without action. As they sat across from each other in the warmly lit restaurant, Jason studied Evan with curiosity. "You look different," Jason said, "calmer, more grounded. How did you change so much?" Evan thought about it carefully. "I realized that I was wasting time, and time is the only thing that does not return when it leaves. I stopped trying to feel ready. I started acting." Jason sighed and looked away. "I wish I had your discipline." Evan shook his head gently. Discipline did not come first. Awareness did. When you understand the cost of wasted time, discipline becomes a choice instead of a punishment. Jason remained quiet. Something in his expression revealed a familiar pain. The pain of knowing a truth you are not ready to face. Evan recognized it because he had lived with it for years. After dinner, Evan walked home slowly, thinking about their conversation. He realized that everyone fights the same enemy, wasted time. Some lose the battle without noticing. Some notice but do nothing. Some make excuses until excuses become identity, and a rare few, once awakened, refuse to return to sleep. Evan promised himself that he would remain among the few. The next day, Evan created a new ritual. Every night before bed, he wrote down 3 questions in a small leather notebook. What did I do today that mattered? What did I waste time on? How can I improve tomorrow? The first week felt easy. The second week felt uncomfortable. The third week felt brutally honest. But by the 4th week, something extraordinary happened. He no longer saw time as a river that carried him away. He saw it as a tool he could shape with intention. He finally felt alive. He started setting weekly goals, monthly goals, and small personal challenges. Run 3 times a week. Write 2 pages every day. Spend 30 minutes learning something new. Meet people who inspire growth. Remove negativity without guilt. Rest intentionally instead of escaping mindlessly. Evan began to witness a truth that people often ignore. Time respects those who respect it. The better he used his hours, the more opportunities appeared. His work improved. His relationships grew deeper. His thoughts felt sharper. His confidence strengthened in ways he had never experienced. One afternoon, while working at a quiet cafe, Evan received a message from the incubator he had joined. They wanted him to present his project on stage at a regional innovation conference. Months earlier, a request like that would have terrified him. Now he felt ready. Not because he had mastered everything, but because he had mastered consistency. On the day of the event, he stepped onto the stage. The bright lights warmed his face. And for a moment, he remembered the old version of himself, one who waited for motivation, wasted hours, and drowned in excuses. He felt a deep, steady pride that washed through his chest like a calm tide. He delivered his presentation with clarity, passion, and purpose. When he finished, the audience applauded. It was not the applause that moved him, but what it represented. It was the reward of all the hours he had once thrown away, but now used to build something meaningful. Later that evening, as Evan stood outside watching the city lights shimmer across the water, he felt a stillness inside his chest. Not emptiness, peace. He understood something he wished he had learned years earlier. A meaningful life is not built in grand moments. It is built in the minutes that most people waste. He whispered into the cool night air, "Thank you for the second chance." As he walked home, he knew one truth with absolute certainty. He would never go back to sleep. He would never surrender his hours again. He would never let life slip away unnoticed. Because he had finally learned that the greatest gift anyone can give themselves is the decision to stop wasting. time and start living with intention. And he intended to live fully, one deliberate minute at a time. Evan continued to grow in ways he never expected. As the months unfolded, he began to understand that the real battle was not against procrastination itself, but against the old identity that had once accepted mediocrity as normal. He had changed his habits, but now he began to change his mindset. One evening, he attended a small gathering organized by the incubator. Entrepreneurs, designers, and creators filled the space with excited conversations. Ideas sparkled in the air like bright sparks, and every person in the room seemed to pulse with determination. Evan stood near a table, listening to the flow of conversation around him. A young woman named Leela approached him and introduced herself. She was confident, but not arrogant, focused, but warm. They exchanged stories, challenges, and victories. When she asked about his journey, Evan hesitated for a moment, unsure how to summarize it. Finally, he said, "I realized that wasted time is the silent enemy of every dream." Lila nodded thoughtfully, "And you chose to fight it." Evan smiled gently. "I chose to stop surrendering to it." That simple exchange stayed with him long after the event ended. He realized that his story was not only about changing habits, it was about reclaiming ownership of his life. It was about refusing to drift through existence as a passenger when he had the ability to be the driver. As the weeks continued, Evan began to mentor a few younger members in the program. They admired his discipline and clarity, but he always told them the same thing: "I am not naturally disciplined. I simply understand the price of wasting time." He watched them struggle through the same emotional storms he had once faced. Self-doubt, fear of failure, the desire to wait for the perfect moment. He guided them gently, encouraging them to take action before their minds created excuses. But one quiet afternoon, Evan visited the same park where he had once realized that movement creates momentum. The trees were full and green, swaying gently in the soft breeze. A father played catch with his young son. A woman read a book under a large oak tree. Two teenagers practiced skateboarding with laughter echoing through the air. Life was moving. Life was active. Life was alive. He sat on the same worn wooden bench and felt a deep sense of gratitude. It amazed him how much of life he had overlooked before. He used to walk through the world like a ghost, distracted and unaware. Now he saw meaning everywhere. He saw effort, attempts, failures, triumphs, and the quiet courage of ordinary people doing their best. A small thought entered his mind, gentle yet powerful. Time is not my enemy. It is my responsibility. That realization made him sit up straighter. He felt present. He felt aware. He felt accountable. Later that evening, he decided to write a letter to his future self. He opened his notebook and wrote with slow, intentional strokes, "Do not forget what it felt like to wake up from sleep. Do not let comfort erase your progress. Remember that you once wasted years and you swore you would never return to that version of yourself. Respect your hours. Respect your mind. Respect your purpose. He closed the notebook and placed it in his drawer as a silent reminder. As autumn approached, new opportunities began to appear. A large company expressed interest in collaborating with his project. A speaker from the conference invited him to a national event. His team praised his leadership. But more important than all the achievements was the quiet inner transformation he carried each day. He no longer waited for life to happen to him. He participated in his own story with intention and clarity. One late night, after a long session of work, Evan stepped out onto his apartment balcony. The city stretched before him, glowing with 1,000 tiny lights. Cars hummed softly in the distance. A cool wind brushed past him. He took a deep breath and whispered softly into the night, "I am grateful for the time I once wasted. It showed me the value of the time I have now." He stood there for a long moment, feeling grounded in the truth he had earned through struggle and awareness. He realized that the most important transformation was not in his routines or achievements. It was in the way he viewed life itself. He no longer wished for more time, he wished to use the time he had with purpose. As he walked back inside, he knew something with unwavering certainty. He was no longer the man who waited for life to begin. He was living it fully, deliberately, one meaningful hour at a time.